All right, let's take a trip back to the 1920s in Ireland, a time when the country was in the midst of major change. Picture this. The Irish Free State has just been established in 1922 after the Irish War of Independence, but things are far from settled. Ireland, now an independent state, was facing some serious challenges, and the road to recovery wasn't exactly smooth. The economy, for starters, was in rough shape. Ireland's economy was pretty much dependent on agriculture, things like beef, butter, and wool. That's what they were known for. But with the loss of trade with Britain, a lot of the country's financial backbone was gone. So, the Irish government started putting protective tariffs in place to help local industries get a leg up, trying to reduce reliance on foreign imports. But let's be honest, they were still very much a rural nation. Industrialization wasn't exactly on the fast track, and it wasn't easy to build a modern infrastructure when your main concern was survival after a war for independence and civil war. Speaking of which, let's talk about innovation and technology, or rather, the lack of it. Ireland wasn't exactly a hotspot for technological breakthroughs in the 1920s. In rural areas, farming methods were still old school, with little modernization. The cities like Dublin? Sure, there was some growth in brewing, textiles, and manufacturing, but heavy industry wasn't really on the agenda. Ireland wasn't exactly investing in the kind of technology other European countries were. The government had its hands full dealing with bigger issues, like trying to hold the country together after years of conflict. Now, on the political front, the 1920s were nothing short of a roller coaster. Ireland had just gone through the Irish War of Independence, which was all about fighting for independence from Britain. The Anglo-Irish Treaty was signed in 1921, and boom, the Irish Free State was born in 1922. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. This treaty caused a huge rift, and that's where the Civil War kicked off. Pro-treaty forces, led by Michael Collins, faced off against the anti-treaty forces, led by Eamon de Valera. The Civil War ended in 1923, but it left scars, divisions that would last for years. But the government that emerged from the ashes was focused on stabilizing the country and building up its institutions. Led by W.T. Cosgrave and the pro-treaty crowd, their priorities were clear. Make Ireland work as an independent state. But here's the thing. Ireland was still deeply connected to Britain. Even though the country had gotten its freedom, many people were still pushing for full sovereignty and to break free from any lingering British influence. As for warfare, tactics, and armory, well, let's just say Ireland wasn't exactly on the cutting edge of military technology. The Irish army, still in its infancy, was made up mostly of British surplus weapons and whatever they could scrounge up after the War of Independence. Guerrilla warfare tactics that were so successful during the independence struggle? Yeah, those were still in use, but they didn't have the modern equipment that other European countries had. Ireland's military was small and underfunded, and let's be honest, the country wasn't about to start an arms race anytime soon. So, what about the social landscape? Ireland in the 1920s was a place of stark contrasts. The majority of the population was Catholic, and the church had a huge influence on daily life. Religion wasn't just a personal thing, it shaped education, social services, and even politics. But life wasn't easy. Poverty was rampant, especially in rural areas. Traditional farming families were struggling to get by, and even in the cities, opportunities were limited. If you were young and had dreams of something better, you were probably thinking about leaving. Emigration to places like America was a big thing, and when the Civil War ended, the emotional toll it took on people wasn't something that just went away. In terms of healthcare and welfare, things were, well, not great. Healthcare was pretty much a local affair. Doctors worked in villages and towns, and many hospitals were run by the Catholic Church. The government had bigger fish to fry, like rebuilding after the war, so public health efforts were mostly focused on fighting infectious diseases like tuberculosis. Rural areas? They struggled with poor sanitation, limited access to clean water, and subpar housing. Life expectancy wasn't great, and quality of life was tough for many. Let's talk about who was living in Ireland, ethnically speaking. Ireland was mostly made up of Irish Catholics, and there weren't a lot of other ethnic groups around. There were small Protestant communities, especially in Northern Ireland, but that was where the divide started: Catholics in the south, Protestants in the north, and this division would haunt Ireland for decades. Oh, and don't forget about emigration. Many Irish people left for America or Australia, chasing better opportunities. So, while the population was largely Irish, the Irish identity was constantly evolving, especially as people left and returned. Now, who were the key figures leading the charge in Ireland during this time? Well, there were a few names that dominated the political and cultural scene. First up, there's Eamon de Valera. He was one of the most influential leaders in the fight for independence and continued to play a huge role in politics throughout the 1920s. He's the guy who opposed the Anglo-Irish Treaty, and though he didn't hold a government position at first, he eventually became the leader of Fianna Fáil and would serve as Taoiseach in the 1930s. Then there's W.T. Cosgrave, the first president of the Executive Council of the Irish Free State. His leadership helped shape the early years of the country's independence. And, of course, there's the tragic figure of Michael Collins. He was assassinated in 1922, but his legacy as a hero of independence lived on. In terms of culture and arts, the 1920s were a time of renewal. The Gaelic revival, which had started in the late 19th century, was still going strong. Writers like W.B. Yeats, James Joyce, and Cian O'Casey were making waves on the global stage, and the Abbey Theatre in Dublin was a hub for Irish theatre. This was a time when Ireland was reclaiming its cultural identity, and there was a growing interest in traditional Irish music, language, and dance. The arts were a way for Ireland to express its national pride and resistance to colonial history. Religion, mysticism, and folklore, well, Catholicism was still the dominant religion in the 1920s, and the church had a tight grip on Irish society. But there was also some undercurrent of spiritual exploration, with people turning to mysticism and spiritualism in the face of all the societal upheaval. And let's not forget about Irish folklore. Myths about legendary heroes like Cuchulainn and Fionn McCumhail were still very much a part of Irish life. These stories, passed down through generations, helped people hold on to their cultural roots and provided a sense of unity. As for crime and underground movements, well, the 1920s saw a rise in smuggling and secret societies, particularly along the border between Northern Ireland and the Irish Free State. Some people were still resisting the new political order, and the IRA was still active, especially in the rural areas. The country had a rough time keeping order, with criminal activity often linked to political divisions and economic hardship. And finally, the 1920s in Ireland weren't without their stereotypes. The Irish were seen as passionate, religious, and politically rebellious. They were often portrayed as poor farmers, deeply connected to the land, and ready to fight for their independence. And of course, there was the stereotype of the Irish emigrant, leaving Ireland for a better life abroad. So, there you have it. The 1920s in Ireland, a time of conflict, change, and resilience. The country was far from perfect, but it was carving out its own identity and working toward a future independent from British rule. It wasn't easy, but the journey was just beginning. Thanks for tuning in to The World as We Know It, and joining me in another chapter of world history. As always, there are more detailed notes in the description, and we welcome any requests or recommendations in the comments section. If you found this video helpful, entertaining, or educational, please consider liking this video and subscribing to support our channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.